What's up, everybody? You're here with the Fly Guy. Today I just wanted to give you a couple quick tips to try to step up your woolly bugger tying game. This fly is so versatile. I tie a lot of buggers, and it just flat out works. It's one of the first flies that most people learn how to tie, and it'll help you search out and find active feeding fish almost anywhere. So I just wanted to share with you some of the adaptations that I've made to my woolly buggers. All the woolly buggers that you're going to see today are available on my website at tfgflies.com, and they're linked below. All right, let's get into it. All right, so one of the first things that I changed up on my woolly buggers was dubbing the bodies. I'll throw up a picture example here. The dubbing really blends with hackle nicely, and it just makes it buggier. It just makes it really look sharp, and especially when that water hits that dubbing, you get some really cool looks. With my dubbing that I incorporate into my flies, it's kind of like an icy, clear look. But depending on the color, you can get some various looks underwater. But my crayfish dubbing looks really natural. To me, it just has a better look overall. So that's why I choose to do it. Also, I just want to mention that, anything that enables me to expand the customization options on my fly, I always choose that option. Chenille is great. There's a lot of different types of chenille out there. I mean, the possibilities are endless just with chenille bodies. But for the minimal extra time that it takes for me to be able to dub a body, I'm able to get some really cool looks and match some colors that I just can't find sometimes in some chenilles. So give it a shot and see what you come up with. So this next tip is just something simple that you can incorporate into your buggers, especially if you tie bigger buggers for bass and trout. I typically don't tie buggers below a size 4 unless I'm doing, some small trout stuff. But even my trout woolly buggers are a size 4. My bass buggers are a little bit bigger than that. So what I incorporate, instead of a metal rib to hold in my hackle feather, I use a piece of 6-pound monofilament line. And not only has it saved me money, but the 6-pound mono rib is just a little bit tougher. When I tie that in, I can really get a good cinch with my thread so it doesn't slip out. And because it has a little bit of stretch, it bites into the material that I've already laid down for the body. So once I really grind that 6-pound mono rib in and I kind of pull on it and get some real tension, once I wrap that down, it's not coming loose. And fish after fish do not destroy it. They can't get to it because it bites into the materials just a little bit better. So I just want to encourage you, try the 6-pound mono. You could even go a little bit lighter than that. 4-pound mono, could work. If you're tying maybe some smaller buggers, but just be careful going anything lower than 4-pound test because you just won't have that durability. 6-pound mono, I've had 0 issues with. I've never had it break yet. I've been doing this for a few years now with the rib, and I think it'll serve you well. So give it a shot and see what you come up with. So the next tip that I have for you is in regards to the feather that you choose to finish your flies with. Now, a lot of guys will just wrap their feather to the head, and they either create a thread head or they just wrap that saddle hackle right up to the bead, and then that's it. They're done. So with that, the one thing that I found is that I either had to make extra wraps with my saddle hackle to get enough bulk behind the bead. If I was using a bead, a cone, or something like that, I needed that bulk behind it to really get a nice symmetrical thread wrap at the end. So what I found is that if I only made 1 or 2 wraps at the end of the body where I finished up my dubbing, I then have a little space in between the bead, the cone, or whatever head style I'm choosing to do, maybe some brass eyes. And in that space, I'm able to incorporate rubber legs and a soft hackle. I'm not going to focus on rubber legs right now because that's also a preference. My focus is on the hackle. So up front, instead of just repeating saddle hackle, I either incorporate soft hackles, like a grizzly soft hackle, or a mallard flank, and that's also dependent on the pattern size. When you go ahead and try the soft hackle method in that space behind the bead and the traditional hackle, you'll find that not only does the traditional hackle, the saddle hackle, support that soft hackle, but even though it's got the support, that soft hackle will move and undulate against the support when you're not doing anything to it. So that type of action where you're able to capitalize on the materials when you're not doing anything to the fly, that is going to assist you big time. You're going to start getting more strikes, and especially when fish are finicky, you can get those pause strikes when you're doing slower retrieves to try to entice fish to hit. So give the soft hackles a try, start there. Mallard flanks can be a little bit challenging to work with at times. I will be doing more tips on that in the future, so if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe. Like I said before, on the bigger flies, I do tend to use a mallard flank. It does have some good action, but it's also a stiffer feather that actually adds a little bit of bulk, and it will kick flies from side to side, especially if you incorporate, a couple of those mallard flanks hackled around the top. You can get some good action out of your bigger buggers or even some of your jig flies. So keep that in mind, give those feathers a shot and see what you can come up with. Now, the final tip that I want to provide you on, just kind of taking your buggers up a notch is, focusing on your head style. Your head style of your woolly bugger should be one of the first things that you consider. And it's because you need to understand the species that you're targeting. Let's say trout and bass, for example. My trout buggers are going to be a lot different than my bass buggers. They're designed differently, they fish differently, and I'm able to do different things with each one. My bass style woolly buggers are more of a jig type woolly bugger that get down, fairly quickly, but all of the weight is up towards the hook eye, which gives a killer jigging action. Now my trout woolly buggers are more of the traditional style, more of a streamer type woolly bugger. I'll fish them with, brass beads, glass beads, traditional head styles. Now sometimes I will use, brass dumbbell eyes like I use in my bass buggers, but most of the time I'm fishing more of a traditional style woolly bugger for trout. I do use brass beads from time to time that are the traditional gold or, nickel or black metal. But for me, I really like glass beads, and it's because I like more color popping in my patterns, and the glass beads give you just an added customization because you can go to any craft store and get a bunch of different colors. I would encourage you to give them a shot. You can attach them the same exact way as you do with your typical, like a Cyclops bead, where you're just running it up the hook shank. Use a few wraps of lead wire, based on your desired sink rate, and make sure to press that up into that glass bead, and you'll have some really cool looks on your woolly buggers. What I do is I'll even coat those glass beads when it's all said and done. This incorporates the thread wrap, mind you, right up front. I will coat everything in a nail polish of the color of my choosing, and then once that dries, I'll coat everything, that bead, the polish, same thing, with UV resin. It makes it a little bit bulkier, but man, the look is so cool, and it really provides a pop of color not only under the water, but it just really adds something to the fly. So I'll be doing more of an in-depth video just on creating a head like that, so you can kind of see how I do it. So make sure that if you have not already, make sure to subscribe and to hit that notification bell so you know when new videos come out. On some woolly buggers, I might even use a brass cone, but I typically stick with just the glass bead, or with my bass buggers, which you've probably already seen on my channel, I'll use a brass dumbbell eye. And this turns that hook point up, it gets it fishing like a jig, it gets it down, and it makes it look really versatile. These types of buggers are actually my favorite to tie. I catch so many different types of fish on them. Freshwater drum, largemouth bass, smallmouth bass, catfish, carp, you name it. These flies really fish, and this type of head style is a little bit more advanced as well, But thinking about that head style in advance is really what's going to elevate, your bugger game. And I think the brass eyes covered with the fabric paint is how I envision, a fly angler or fly tyer imitating what hard tackle guys are able to do. Hard tackle guys are very fortunate that they've got a lot of, those specialty painted jig heads and soft plastics, and fly anglers, we have to improvise a little bit, unless you want to, commit an act of heresy and, fish a rubber worm on a fly rod. I'm not saying you can't do it, but your buddies might give you a hard time. But, the whole point is that as a fly tyer and fly angler, we have to get creative with how we, maybe add color to our patterns, or, get more action incorporating rubber legs, maybe a little bit more flash, utilizing marabou, soft tackles. All this stuff combined into one pattern is going to give you the most action and bang for your buck. But adding those brass eyes and then adding that pop of fabric paint in really gives it a pop of color, and that fabric paint becomes a hardened but yet kind of like a hardened rubbery style glue. That's the best way that I can describe it, and it locks those eyes in, so it really does become bulletproof. Once you put a couple coats of fabric paint over those dumbbell eyes and really lock in those thread wraps, I mean, it's going to take a lot to move those eyes or damage that fly. So I always encourage people to try using fabric paint. You can get really creative with this. Again, it's the same thing as the nail polish and UV resin. It just ups your customization game, and it gives you more options at the vise. You could go out to Walmart or any craft store. A little tube of fabric paint is only going to cost you about $1, maybe $2 at the most for one. So I mean, you could spend between $10 and $20 and have a ton of color and customization options for your flies. Well, I hope these tips helped you, and I hope there's some things here that you could take away to add into your woolly bugger fly tying and fly fishing. It's a great pattern. It's one of the first that you should learn how to tie because it teaches you so many different things. There's a lot to this pattern, and you can really branch out and make some cool creations that fish even better than the original. All the flies that you saw today are available on my website at tfgflies.com. If you like this video, go ahead and hit thumbs up, and if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to my channel for more fly fishing and fly tying videos. Thanks again for watching, everybody. Take care, and we'll catch you next time.